It's a really complex ball of wax, if you will. So let's talk it through with Cory Redekop, the CEO of Greater Langley Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for being with us, Cory.
I appreciate the chance to chat with you. How are you doing, Jody?
I'm doing pretty well. I mean, I'm worried. We heard, some people would have heard in the news, John Straight's news here locally, with the story of, small businesses who are struggling already with inflation, and now they're struggling to deliver the services to their customer. I mean, this is going to be a breaking point for some. I saw a few days ago a story of John Flufog, who famously sells those beautiful shoes, hand delivering shoes to people. Because, some can do this. What do you see happening here on a larger scale?
Yeah, I mean, to the news on that they're going to go back to the table. Hopefully, I mean that's encouraging. I'm not holding my breath. They've been at the table 100 times, I think, since last November. I don't know whether these two parties can get to a deal, but hopefully that's moving in the right direction. But yeah, you had that story in the news there about the small business, and you could hear the frustration in her voice, and that's what gets me. I have 1,100 members in Langley in the south of Fraser area here, and it's the frustration. It's been a heck of a year for a lot of these small businesses. It's been a heck of a couple of years for a lot of these small businesses, and it's just a kick in the teeth. Now this is the time when why it's called Black Friday, because it puts them from in the red to into black. This is the time they make the money, which keeps the doors open for the rest of the year. January, February are going to be a lean couple of months, I'm imagining, and this is the time when they need to be making those sales. And just the stories I'm hearing of the headaches on shipping, the money stuck in the mail, the marketing that's not happening. I know some people kind of shake their head and say, "Oh, you can't send Christmas cards, boo-hoo." If that's all you use Canada Post for, well, then I guess good for you. For our members, for small businesses, It's a real needed piece of infrastructure. It's not a service, not a nice to have. It's critical infrastructure, and it's a real shame that we can't figure out how to deliver a parcel or a piece of mail in 2024 in Canada.
So when we are looking at it from the perspective of it is an essential service, like this institution has already been bleeding money. I mean, those are the stories leading up to it.
Yeah.
But from a government perspective, what can be done? What should be done? Do you think,
I think
in your opinion?
I guess there's two tracks. I mean, one is, what are we going to do with the Postal Service going forward? There's lots of ideas. There's lots of ways we could modernize this, and I'm happy to take Canada Post's call when they want to get some ideas. I mean, there's how do we solve the actual service, because it's infrastructure. You mentioned credit cards, passports, immigration papers. We've built. I'm waiting for something from the CRA. I mean, that's coming by mail. It's not going to arrive. So I mean, we've built our government around using this as a service. So it is essential. We need to figure out how to make it so that it doesn't dissolve or collapse on itself. So that's one challenge. I think on the strike piece, the government needs to intervene now. I think the minister seems really reluctant to get off the sidelines this time. They've intervened in the rail, they've intervened in the ports, and I think that's probably why. They probably are concerned about creating moral hazard. If they kind of intervene every time, well then, will anyone bother negotiating? Because they know eventually the minister is going to step in. But as I mentioned earlier, they've been at the table since November 2023. And they've met 100 times. The union filed their notices in August saying this isn't working, so let's start the clock towards the strike. So it's not like we didn't see this coming. It's not like the minister didn't know this was happening. I'm just not sure whether these parties can negotiate. If we think back, they had to do back-to-work legislation in 2011 under Stephen Harper. They had to do it again in 2018 under Justin Trudeau. Maybe it's not us. Maybe it's them. I think maybe these two parties just can't negotiate. So we're all going to be waiting, 3 more weeks, 3 more months? At some point, they're going to need to get involved. So binding arbitration, a cooling off period to get us through to January. There needs to be some action. I don't think we can wait in the sidelines any longer.
We're with Cory Redekop, CEO of Greater Langley Chamber of Commerce. I think you're speaking so many truths in a row. We have to talk about the postal worker as well, and the union, and the importance of protecting their well-being. I know we're going to open up phones on this, and I hope that a Canada Post worker will chime in on this, because there are some who are on strike who need the job as much as we need the things that are coming in the mail, right? Like this is not easy for anybody, but there are these, I like the idea personally binding arbitration makes all kind of sense to me, because those are realistic dollar figures that get put on the table by each side, and someone in the middle says, this is what's fair, this is what's happening, we're moving forward with this. There seems to be so much common sense in that. But, are we limiting the freedoms and rights of unions if that is, implemented? Where does the line then be drawn for those who can't do that?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, I mean, I'm coming from a business perspective, so you're not probably going to find me on the picket line anytime soon. But I respect the right to collective bargaining, and I understand that that's an important piece. I do think we need, as a society, to start to draw a distinction between collective bargaining when it impacts a private business and their workers. So if grocery store X goes on strike, everyone can just go to grocery store Y, and that's a problem for grocery store X and their customers and their employers and their employees, and they figure that out. Why we were pleased to see intervention in the rail, why we were pleased to see intervention in the ports, and why we want to see intervention in the Canada Post is because there is a material difference when we're talking about massive public infrastructure, kind of the base level of service. The police still respond to 911, the hospitals still take it when the ambulance shows up. There are certain things we expect to keep working because we just need them. We've built ourselves around them as a society, and I think being able to have a mail service is at least at some level. Maybe we can't do everything. Maybe it takes 3 weeks to get a letter instead of 5 days. So maybe there's an essential service element piece where not everything works hunky-dory when there's job action, but something needs to still be getting through the mail. So I understand that the workers have a right to collectively bargain, and these deals are better made when they're at the table. And perhaps we wouldn't be here if we had better negotiations in 2018 and 2011. But the fact that two different governments from both sides of the aisle over a decade can't seem to help these parties come to an agreement, I think there's something bigger there. So I'm on your side. I think put a third party in there, say, here's what you want one side, here's what you want the other, here's what you're getting, so we can get the Postal Service running. And then they can start nibbling on the edges around, are we doing weekends? How are we doing that? Those types of things they can still negotiate, but keep the mail going in the meantime. We should be able to kind of walk and chew gum at the same time here.
Right. Your CRA check, isn't like suddenly coming by FedEx, and somebody's passport that they've been waiting on so that they can go away for their family Christmas holiday, isn't going to be rerouted by private courier, whether DHL, name them all off, UPS, what have you. There's no backup to this. I mean, there is theoretically when you talk about the grocery store X having a job action or a strike with theirs, you can go to grocery store Y. So there are people, I can move things around. I can send it by courier or find a different way of delivery, but we can't get these essentials, these parcels and checks and things that only come through mail, even with a little bit of warning. So I love the way you laid that out, Cory. Thank you for doing that. Also, the fact that Canada Post, just to put into perspective, if you don't know the numbers, Canada Post has previously said it has offered a wage increase totaling 11.5% over 4 years and additional paid leave while protecting the defined benefit, pension, and job security provisions, while the union has called for a cumulative wage hike of 24% over 4 years. So these two sides, as you mentioned, very, very far apart in this moment. So it'll be interesting to see what action, if any, government might take at this moment. But I hope for business sake, and I hope for your south of the Fraser group and truly Canadians coast to coast to coast get some relief here sooner rather than later. Thanks for taking some time to talk it through with me.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much, Jody. Take care.
That is Cory Redekop, the CEO of Greater Langley Chamber of Commerce.